Good morning and welcome to Purpose Driven Finances, where our focus is helping you use your finances to achieve the purpose and plan for your life. And now here's the host of Purpose Driven Finances, Alan Molina with Serwus Capital Management.
Hey, good morning. This is Alan Molina, your host of Purpose Driven Finances and president of Serwus Capital Management. Hey, we have an exciting weekend for you, interviewing Jonathan Falwell, my pastor, my friend, talking about having a purpose and plan for your life and not allowing finances to rule and reign in them, but really achieving the purpose and plan for your life. But for the first, quarter of the show, we're going to sit here with my favorite co-host, Rich Roth. How you doing, my friend?
Hi, Alan.
Now, Rich, now you know why I said we aren't worried about the Jets. Hey, and we're not.
It's a low blow, Alan.
Hey,
it's a low blow.
We're not worried about the Steelers anymore either, are we?
Low blow.
They
play next weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt the Jets win because our defense is really good, but we had so many injuries, and then our offense is like, I think Tomlin has. Yeah, I think he messes with it too much, but people don't care about that. Rich, we only have about 8 minutes left before we get to a great interview. I wanted to, on Thursday, something came out called the CPI, and it really wasn't much. I think it came out at 2.44, where the street was expecting 2.3. The month before, it came out at 2.54 or 2.53. But they counted it, they knock off the last digit in 2.5 to 2.4. And you're like, Alan, what does that have to do with anything? Well, what's happened is it's going to be the lowest inflation we have for a while. What is expected is inflation is going to start moving up into the rest of the year and in the next year. I'm not talking about 8 or 9%, that train wreck we had. But what we're going to have is greater inflation, and it's going to be problematic. It's going to be problematic for the Fed. It's going to be problematic for investments. But what I wanted to do is take a minute, and I have a little soundbite from Milton Friedman. He's a world-renowned economist from the old days, and he has exactly an explanation of why the inflation is heading our way. Go ahead.
Inflation is the most destructive disease known to modern societies. There is nothing which will destroy a society so thoroughly and so fully as letting inflation run riot. Inflation doesn't arise because you got consumers who are spendthrift. They've always been spendthrift. It doesn't arise because you've got the businessmen who are greedy. They've always been greedy. Inflation arises because we as citizens have been asking you as politicians to perform an impossible task. We've been asking you to spend somebody else's money on us, but not to spend our money on anybody else. Everybody talks against inflation, but what he means is that he wants the prices of the things he sells to go up and the prices of the things he buys to go down. The real tax on the American people is not what you label taxes. It's total spending. If Congress spends $50 billion more than it takes in, if government spends $50 billion, who do you suppose pays that $50 billion?
Of course.
The Arab sheiks aren't paying it. Santa Claus isn't paying it. The Tooth Fairy isn't paying it. You and I, as taxpayers, are paying it indirectly through hidden taxation.
All right. Now, Rich, I know that was, old school, and people are like, who is Milton Friedman? Go ahead and Google it and research it. I'm not going to give you his biography right here. But he's saying that the reason we have inflation is because of government overspending. He was saying if it spends $50 billion more, that's like in 2 days. Now, I think last year we spent $3 trillion greater than we brought in.
Crazy.
And so what we're expecting is within 10 to 15 years, debt to GDP is going to be well over 150 to 170%. That's to a point where it's unsustainable. And what's going to happen is we're going to have inflation. And that rabbit trail, and we'll deal with that 10, 15 years later at another time. But what does it mean for our portfolios today? I expect over the next 3, 6, 9 months, the inflation to creep up a little bit, but the economy to be sluggish into probably into first quarter next year. And so what's going to end up happening is we're going to have probably 6 months of stagflation, where you get a little higher inflation and slowing economic growth. And I didn't tell you to pull up a chart or ask you to pull up a chart, but if you were to pull up a chart right now of the S&P 500 since September 19th, it's been range bound. What I mean by that is it's gone up maybe 0.75% and down 0.75%, nothing significant. And you say, Alan, what does that matter? Because the problem is the Fed is kind of stuck. They're going to lower interest rates coming up. You can follow the Fed futures. It's at CME. Just Google that and you can find it. And it changes every day. And they were thinking about a 50-50 and a 25. Now it's looking like they'll probably do a 25, maybe another 25. But if you keep on going out to Fed meetings, it's 25, 25, 25. The problem is once inflation starts kicking up, are they going to be scared? And the election is going to be very dramatic on inflation because if Kamala, I don't know if I pronounced it right or wrong, doesn't really, I apologize. I never got hooked on phonics. The issue with Harris is if she comes in, who she's going to put into the Fed, they're going to be spending it on so much crap, income for everybody, environmental policies by the Fed. It's just going to be a train wreck.
Well, and what Friedman said real quick, because I know we're short on time, that really stood out to me was, what people want and what the government right now is giving them is they want to sell their goods at a high price and everything they buy to be cheap, which obviously makes no sense at all.
Right.
It's I want to have my cake and eat it too. And the government's trying to do that. And by doing that, they're causing inflation.
Exactly.
Right? Because they're just trying to give people what they think they want to buy votes.
Exactly. That's all it is to buy votes. And if Trump comes in, I'm expecting the Fed to not look like it is today. I think it's going to be dramatically changed. And what's interesting is there's an author I like. He wrote a book called The Fourth Turning, and he talks about significant changes. So what I did is I brought my little dynamic asset allocation sheet. We can talk about QPM next week maybe. But right now, I'm looking at all the bonds. Rich, I track on a daily basis, weekly basis, about 9-10 different asset classes. No, it's actually about 12 of bonds. Everything from speculative bonds, government bonds, corporate bonds, emerging market bonds, specialty bonds, all kinds of bonds. There's only one that says go long. And so if people want to know what it is, call me. Call me.
Oh, what a tease.
It's a tease.
What a tease you are, Alan.
Hey, I'm trying to learn. I went to Rich Roth Radio 101. If you want to know, call me. And I'm looking at the major indexes. One of them is saying sell, get out of it. If we're looking at large cap, mid cap, small cap, one of them is saying get out of it. And so, looking at other places, banks look like to be a train wreck. Rich, I've heard some things of markets where they're having to increase the loan loss provisions, where housing markets are a train wreck, like in Texas and Florida. So, folks, there's going to be some major issues. And the next 6-9 months is going to be exciting, and I look forward to it. So hope you've changed your portfolio. Give me a call at 434-316-0246 or go to my website, servuscm.com. And, stick around because right after the break, we're going to, talk to Jonathan Falwell. And I really ask him questions about his dad. And, Jerry Falwell Sr. here in Lynchburg, some people love him, some people don't like him. Doesn't really matter to me. He achieved a great deal, more than the average person. And I wanted to know how he had a purpose and plan, but also how he didn't allow finances to rule and reign in his life. So stick around after the break, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Dan Bongino. I know we don't like early voting. We say we because I hate it too. I think there should be a national election day with voter ID. Everybody gets off paper ballots. That's it. Sadly, tragically, we're stuck with this system now. Where on election day, it's like magic. I'm in the Republican-leaning areas where we're having printer problems and all this other stuff. Then wait till election day because that's what's going to happen to you. They're already advertising. Please don't. I'm begging. Bank your vote early.
The Dan Bongino Show, weekdays from noon to 3 on WLNI.
Is this election year wearing you out with all the empty promises and false claims? I tell my kids most politicians are all sack, no potatoes. I'm Tommy, the woodsman. My team and I embody my tagline, properly equipped, more than capable. As a tree service company, our core competencies are tree removal, tree pruning, stump grinding, and lot clearing. Unlike the competition, we deliver on our promises every day and never depend on subcontractors. Check us out at IHaveASawForThat.com.
And now, back to Purpose-Driven Finances. Here's Alan Molina with Serwus Capital Management.
Hey, good morning, folks. This is Alan Molina, your host of Purpose-Driven Finances and President of Serwus Capital Management. Hope you're having a great and awesome Saturday. Thank you for sticking around. If you want to reach me, give me a call at 434-316-0246 or go to my website, servuscm.com. We're sitting here with my pastor and friend Jonathan Falwell. And this month we've been talking about purpose-driven finances and what that really means. And I asked Jonathan to come on today, and he's going to be on next week. Really, I wanted to talk about his dad. And what's interesting, Jonathan, is I have 2 college-age Bible studies at the house. Most of them go to Liberty. And it's amazing how they don't know about your dad. You know, it's a lot of freshmen, and I encourage them to read the books and things such as that. But the reason we're talking about purpose-driven finances is because people and your goals in your life are more important than your stuff. And saving for retirement is great, but also serving and helping your family is much better. Young married, rather than going to coffee shops, it's better to save maybe for a camper to travel around the U.S. to fulfill a dream. And so what I wanted to talk to you, that's just a refresher for folks, but about your dad. I don't know if you knew this, but your dad actually helped me with my purpose and plan for my life. My freshman year at Liberty back in 1991, I wrote your dad a long letter he probably didn't keep that I wanted to talk to him about the ministry, and he gave me some great advice. And then when I lost my job at Morgan Stanley, I sat down with him at the office, and he gave me great advice and things such as that. So he really helped me. And, Liberty, Thomas wrote it in Blessed. And so what I wanted to do is talk about your dad and a little bit about the experience. But what was your dad's purpose and plan for his life?
Well, that was about 28 questions in one right there.
It is.
That was great. But
just
obviously, Dad passed away 17 and a half years ago. Mm-hmm. And so, you mentioned that some, even some of the students at Liberty really don't know a lot about him. But you think about they were one, exactly, or maybe, just being born when he passed away. And so, clearly there's been quite a disconnect in time between then and now. But what we recognize is as you and I understand, because we did have the opportunity of knowing him, and as you just shared eloquently, the opportunity you have of sitting down and talking with him as a friend, but also as your pastor, to get some advice and, to get some picture of what does it mean to have something to look forward to, something to point your life towards, because all of us are born with a mission. Exactly. All of us have something that we were created to do. And our job really, as a young person, is to figure out, okay, what is it? What is that thing? And so regardless of what that path looks like, regardless of where it takes you, you have to recognize, there's a purpose, there's a plan behind it. And then what, our responsibility in order to be successful is not just to pile up a bunch of cash. Our purpose in being successful is to actually accomplish everything that we were set out to do, everything that we were called to do, and to do it to the best of our abilities, to do it to honor not only ourselves and our career, but to honor God ultimately. And you know that. Of course, I'm a preacher, and so you'll get a little preacher talk in here in the midst of talking about money.
I think it's great.
But there's no doubt, there's no question that purpose is something that drove him. He never looked at resources. He never looked at money as the end game.
Right.
So he never looked at like how to make money and how to stack money up. He always looked at money as a tool. He always looked at it as an opportunity of something, a resource that you can use in order to further what it was that he was called to do. He was called to be a pastor. He planted and started Thomas Road Baptist Church that now, all of these years later, 68 years later, is still thriving and impacting people around the world. He saw a calling, a purpose of starting LCA, Liberty Christian Academy, and now here in 1967, he started it today, the largest private school in the state of Virginia. Then you talk about Liberty. Clearly, 1971, he saw the calling that God had placed on him to start Liberty. And what started with 154 students, today we have about 160,000 students that are studying right now all around the world, the largest Christian university in the world. I think it's the 8th largest university in the United States of any kind. And so clearly you talk about purpose. That's a big purpose,
that's
right?
A huge
that's
purpose.
like something that you're
purpose.
called to do and encouraged to do. And so he never saw like resources and money as the end game.
Right.
So in other words, he recognized that every dollar that he made, every dollar he raised, every dollar that he asked for, people joke a lot about he was always asking for money, but he wasn't asking money to put money in the bank. He wasn't asking money so he could buy a car. He was asking to raise money and to have people to come alongside and partner with him for the purpose of accomplishing what now we are looking back on 17 years after his death, and we're seeing as something that is still thriving and still moving. And so, ultimately, his heart, his passion was to spend his life building something that would not die with him.
Right.
And I think we sit back today and the things that I just mentioned to you, along with some other personal things. So, his family was very important to him. And so, he wanted to spend his life to make sure that when he was gone, that the things that he poured his life into weren't gone also. And so in other words, that means you've got to actually recognize what 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2 tells us. It's required of stewards to be found faithful. That word steward literally means manager. And so he recognized that everything that he had, everything that he ever made, everything that he ever raised was not his, and it was not to be, squirreled away somewhere. It was that he was called to be a good manager of what he had so that he could accomplish his purpose in life.
That's awesome. I knew that. I just wanted listeners to hear that because we get so many people moving in from out of state. People love Lynchburg, and so many people who listen to the show don't know the Dr. Falwell that I know, of course, you being his son. And you answered my next question,
Sorry.
No, I think it's awesome. You read it. Now, a few stories that I heard, because I used to work in the mansion up in the attic. And
just for clarity, the mansion was Dad's office.
Dad's office.
It was the old Carter Glass mansion
Not
that
his
was
house.
on the campus of Liberty. And it's where actually Senator Carter Glass, around the turn of the century, was the senator from Virginia. And he, along with another senator, Senator Stegall, that they wrote the Glass-Steagall Act, which is the Federal Reserve Act. They actually wrote that on the campus of Liberty University.
Exactly. And
just a side note we'll throw in.
We like that, cover all the bases. But a few stories that I heard that he was given a Rolex watch, but he never wore it. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true.
He did. He was. And in fact, he had it and he stuck it in a closet. And to be quite honest with you, I found it about 4 months ago.
Wow.
He's been dead 17 years. And I found it about 4 months ago.
And I also heard that
he looks good too, by the way.
Don't have it on. Be afraid to wear it.
Yeah, no kidding. That he would keep cash in his desk in order to give away.
Yeah, my mom was always really careful with him because she knew that whatever money that he had with him, whether it was in his pocket or a desk or car, he was going to give it away.
Right.
He would give it away, to anybody and everybody who had a need, who someone walking through difficult times. And of course, I think probably after time, he got a reputation. So there were a lot of people who had difficult times and tough times, and they would see him coming. But regardless, she would always be careful, like how much money to give him. So, when my dad died in 2007, he did not have a bank account in his name. He did not have a checkbook. He did not have a credit card in his name. My mom managed all of the family finances for decades because, to be quite honest with you, he couldn't be trusted with it because he was going to give it away to help people and encourage people and bless people. And I hear stories even still today, again, 17 years he's been gone, of how he would actually took off a jacket and would give it to someone, I heard a story not long ago of someone out in Amherst County that he was out visiting some people out there, and the person did not have shoes. And my dad actually took off his shoes and gave them to him, and he drove back to Lynchburg without shoes on. If I were that person, I wouldn't have taken those shoes because my dad was kind of rough on shoes. But regardless, that was the kind of person that he was. Because, again, he didn't see material things as something to try to attain, to try to hang on to. He looked at everything as a resource and everything as a tool to be used to further the kingdom, to further the purpose, to further his calling, which I think is honestly exactly what God's word, what the Bible tells us for all of us to do. Is there's nothing wrong with having money. There's nothing wrong with having resources. There's nothing wrong with having a retirement and planning out those things. Nothing wrong with having a camper to drive around.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that at all. The biggest issue is when that is the end goal, when that is your total focus is what you can have rather than what you can do with what you have. That's when we see problems.
Exactly, and that's the reason for the show is to help people achieve the purpose and plan for their life, because everybody knows I'm a Christian, and I'm not a Christian financial planner, but in the sense of the business, but helping people achieve the purpose ultimately that God has for their life, because everybody is created with a purpose. Not everybody is called to plant a mega church and plant the 8th largest university in the world, but everybody's called to do something. And if you don't achieve what you're called to do, you're failing, and you need to achieve that. And the reason I asked all those stories and to confirm is what did your dad do in order to keep the desire for money at bay, but to focus on keeping it as a tool to be used to accomplish the purpose and plan for his life?
Well, my dad was clearly, anyone who knew him understood this. He loved people. His driving force every day when he woke up was people. It wasn't stuff. It wasn't success. It wasn't trying to climb any ladders that might be out there for, whatever career path that someone might have. He just loved people. And so everything that he thought about, everything that he did was, how can I help people? How can I encourage people? How can I help young people? That's part of the reason why Liberty exists today. Our mission today, as it was in 1971, was to train champions for Christ. Individuals who would go out into the world, and whether it be in education or business or into medicine or whatever career path that they chose, that they would go out prepared, they would go out with excellence, they would have all the tools that they needed to accomplish what it is that they sought out to accomplish in their lives. But he wanted to make sure that he did everything he could to help those people get where they were going. And so when your focus is always on people, when your focus is always on others, when your focus is always on helping other people, you don't have a lot of time left to think about self and to think about what I can build up for myself and what I can get out of the deal.
Right.
My dad never cared about what he could get out of the deal. His focus always, his heart always was, hey, of the organization, the ministry, the church, the university, it was always that, because that's where his heart was. That's what his focus was. He wanted to make sure that he saw his calling, he saw his purpose as helping people accomplish what God had for them in their life. And so because of that, he never had sight at all on stuff. That was never a thing. I was with him many times when he would be going somewhere to speak, and his tie would be there. And my dad was a big guy, and big guy he was big. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was with him a lot of times, and rather than a lot of people who would have a tie clip or something like that, he would actually go and find some Scotch tape, and he would take Scotch tape and roll it in a circle and put it on the back of his tie to keep the back part of his tie from swinging out, rather than actually buying ties that were long enough or buying a tie clip or something like that, because he just did not care. And he did not care about stuff. He only cared about people.
That's awesome. That's the way it should be. Now, we got a lot of listeners out there, and they're like, I'm not going to do what he did. I'm not going to do what you do. What encouraging words do you have for those people who feel like their purpose and plan is not that grand, or they don't feel as important? Any suggestions or
the first
advice?
thing I would say is that when God calls you to something, when God places that purpose on your life, God is not sitting back thinking, well, I'm going to give this person a big thing and I'm going to give this person over here a small thing. What God does is he sees you for who you are. He equips you for what he's called you to do. And God gives you everything that you need in order to be successful in that calling. And therefore, everything that you do that falls in line with the calling of God and the will of God for your life, it is just as important as anything that anyone else might do. Mm-hmm. My dad, if he were sitting here today, he would say, hey, what I did was not nearly as big as what somebody like a Billy Graham did or a Mother Teresa has done or whatever it might be, because he would say, hey, they did some incredible things, ministering to people in the worst parts of the world. Like clearly, everything that we do, we have to recognize if it's what God's called you to do, it is the single most important thing in the world, and it is just as important as what anyone else does. And so when you come about it with that passion and with that heart and that desire of knowing that this is what I'm supposed to do, and you walk into it with the kind of passion that will lead you to the finish line, you don't need to sit back and wonder, man, I wish I could do what that guy does. Because if you tried to do what that person does, you'd fail, because that's not what you're called to do.
Exactly.
If I tried to do what my dad did, I would fail miserably. If I tried to do what you did, I would fail miserably. I would have no clients whatsoever. Because we're called to do a specific thing. And if we focus on that and we lean into that and we do it with a passion, that is where we will be successful, and that is where we will find our greatest joy.
Exactly. Now, Rich, I didn't bring you into it. Do you got any questions?
The one I've got, and, you're talking about the purpose and what you've been called to do professionally or morally, and I was just wondering, is there like an epiphany, an aha moment where all of a sudden you realize what it is? Because I'm sure a lot of people go through life wondering, hey, what is it I'm supposed to do? How do I know?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lightning bolt moment. For some people, there may be. I mean, you can go back and you can see that for some people, there was a lightning bolt moment, right? But for a lot of people, it is just simply that you walk down a path and, by circumstances and by happenstance, you end up walking one way or walking the other, and then pretty soon you end up, doing a radio show, and you end up leading a radio station, you end up leading a media company as you do, and you recognize, I think if I ask you today, hey, like, what's your purpose in life? I think you would probably talk about what you're actually doing. And so there wasn't probably a lightning bolt moment for you, but what you saw is like, hey, yeah, this is, man, I've got a skill set here. This is something I love doing. I enjoy doing, maybe not all the time, but I enjoy doing this. I do it well. And so I think for everybody, it's different.
And I would just add that the key thing for me that you guys both touched on was the passion, right? Because plenty of people do things that they don't really enjoy, and that's got to be a tough way to go through life. I mean, to find something
Absolutely.
that you love, even if it doesn't pay as much money or, as the financial advisor.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as you know, Rich, and I know Alan knows this as well, I spend a lot of time in drive-thrus of a certain restaurant in this town. And I think you know which one I'm talking about.
I do.
And, you can go through drive-thrus. All of us have done it at some point in our lives. And sometimes you can see people that you can tell when you drive, like they have no desire to be there. That they're there for the paycheck. And sometimes, they're hardly even there for the paycheck. Like they're just biding time to get out and get done, move on, right? Then other times you can see people who are just there with joy in their hearts. Like on Timberlake Road, at the McDonald's on Timberlake Road, there's a lady named Brenda there who works there. You come through, and man, if she's waiting on you, she has a passion and a joy and a heart for every person she talks to, for every person that she serves, whether it's a Egg McMuffin or a Diet Coke. Like she does that with joy in her heart. I mean, you just feel like when you walk out of there, like, man, I've been encouraged today because the lady who works at McDonald's has blessed me. That's passion. And it doesn't matter whether it's at a McDonald's or a radio station or a church or in a financial planner or whatever it might be. When you're excited about something, when you're passionate about something, it is contagious. And when it's that passion and that contagion that leads you through life, then, man, you can't help but be successful. But more importantly, you can't help but be joyful. Because when you find that kind of passion in life, when you kind of find that purpose, it takes you to the next level of accomplishment and the next level of success, which maybe in the world's view might not be what the world would say is success. It may not be, becoming a millionaire or a billionaire or, stacking up yachts and cars and all those kinds of things. But there are things that I listen, I've known some billionaires in my life, and I got to be honest with you, I've met some that are miserable. And then I meet somebody like Brenda at McDonald's who I've never seen her where she is not the most joyful person that you could possibly want to. Stuff doesn't make you happy. Purpose makes you happy.
And folks, this is Alan Lynn, your host of Purpose Driven Finances, and this is a wrap for Purpose Driven Finances this Saturday. Next Saturday, Jonathan's going to be back and talking about his life personally, not just his dad, but about his personal life of how he achieves the purpose and plan for his life. Give me a call at 434-316-0246, and hope you have a blessed weekend.
Returns for illustrative purpose. This is not a suggestion to buy, sell, or use a platform. Only will a suggestion occur after a meeting to determine goals, risk tolerance, and time horizons. Investments involve risks and no guarantee of future results.